Welcome back, friends. Today we are talking about self-sabotaging.
That's it. That's all we need to say.
That's the only thing. That's it. Oh my God. Oh man.
This could be
Um,
hours of conversation. So,
so many hours. It's like, okay, let's have this as a topic. This came to mind because this keeps coming up. Welcome back to our channel. I'm Nicole.
and I'm Janelle. We have bonded as millennial women, as moms, wives, as coaches, and as students of life, all while finding the humor in the chaos. This is us unpacking and externally processing the ever evolving and growing baggage of life. Join us in the conversation.
Have we mentioned that we've never actually met in real life? We are connected from afar. Okay, anyways, but this is something that just keeps coming up over and over again through sessions that I have with clients or even just people in my life, like really wanting to make bigger moves or just a move. We could even just say a move, right? And just feeling like they just keep getting in their own way, which ultimately, like low key, is just this like self-sabotage of not allowing yourself to be this big version of like who you really are, which we are all so like uniquely talented and have so much to bring. But these thoughts or beliefs or whatever they are get in our way and just completely hinder us from stepping forward and doing, you know, doing the new thing or doing the thing we haven't done before or the scary thing or like whatever that is.
Yeah, and I think it's important to say that everyone experiences this at some point.
Yeah.
And it never really goes away. You learn to manage it and learn to be aware of it and move through it. But
Mhm.
those thoughts never go away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like looking on my own life, I've talked about this in the past and I'll always talk about this because this is a story of mine, but just this belief of like, I'm not smart and how many times I allowed that one belief to hold me back. And I mean, that's from like taking a risk with a career or even like believing that I could end a relationship, like
Mm.
end a toxic relationship, believing that I wasn't smart, like, spiraled down to feeling completely unworthy, right? So it's like this is just the relationship that I get. Or not going for like that new job, that new thing that I wanted to do, or even something fun, like a trip, or, it's just like, no, like, I better not, I shouldn't. Um, but it was just such a, I don't know, that's just been a belief of mine that has held me hostage for so long. And listening and hearing other people's stories of knowing that, like, they have had similar experiences. If you could think of like a belief that you had that created a self-sabotage type of behavior, Janelle, what do you feel like it would be?
Oh, um, there's been many over the years, and they've evolved a little bit, but there, it's, it's been an evolution for sure. And I didn't realize what it was.
Hmm.
I guess I did. I always had this feeling of I'm not living up to my full potential. I know I'm made
Yeah.
for more, but not understanding how to get through it. I mean, obviously, awareness is the first step. That's a really important first step. Is just recognizing, but you need to go past that. But for me, it was a lot of how I would identify, or I guess kind of the cues that I would notice that I was starting to self sabotage or was feeling
Hmm.
imposter syndrome was emotional eating. Instead
Yeah.
of doing the things that I felt was really hard or that I knew I needed to get done, I would go to the fridge to keep myself busy, things like that.
Hmm.
reading, escaping, binging on Netflix, or, even before Netflix, of I lived on my own, I would go to to Blockbusters and order the 7 movies for 7 days and watch them all in one day.
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
Definitely procrastination, huge procrastinator. What else? And it definitely was stemmed over the years. It stemmed from different areas. Some of it was
Yeah.
lack of belief in myself. Definitely, it took me a long time to figure out this was actually a limited belief of myself, because I was a good student. I did great in school. I knew I could learn new things. I liked to learn new things, but I went to an event and it came up. And when you get like this realization, you're like, holy shit, I didn't know that was there. And now I
Yeah.
get it. As same as you is, I think I'm stupid. I'm
Yeah.
not smart enough. I don't have any degrees, like major degrees. I have certifications and things like that. But this idea of I don't have education, I'm not educated enough to go for any of those big jobs, or yeah. Anyway, so that was one of my limiting beliefs that I've worked through for sure. That I'm not pretty enough. I'm not the pretty one, the popular one, even though I was a chameleon. I could be friends with anyone, but I wasn't sporty enough. I wasn't, oh man, the list just goes on and on, right? It's the I'm not enough, and working through that.
Yeah.
Or I am not worthy.
Yeah. Not worthy. And something that comes up too is like when you're in that state, how often you ignore red flags that are like coming your way. Like I was talking about, like being in a toxic relationship that like I knew wasn't serving me. And it's like the red flags couldn't be redder, couldn't be bigger, couldn't be bright. I mean, it was literally like the whole thing was a red flag. And it was just like, no, all right, like whatever. Every couple has their problem, right? Like I could just like talk myself out of whatever it was. And it's just interesting to me how like we can get conditioned or programmed into that belief. And it's not until we have that aha moment of like, oh my God, that's not who I am. Like
Yeah.
this isn't actually who I am. I think this is who I am. I've created this entire identity around this version of me, and it's not me at all.
Yeah. But I think we get stuck in the fear part. Like even once we have the awareness, is now it's the fear of the unknown, the fear of
Hmm.
change. And we get stuck in that because either we feel we don't deserve more, or we don't deserve better, or we feel like, the whole saying of the grass isn't greener on the other side, or isn't always greener on the other side, like, can
Yeah.
I actually do better than this? Whether it's a relationship or a job, or even just our health, you know, is this fear
Yeah.
that holds us back. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I mean, we use it also, and when we talk about fear, I know for me, one of my biggest fear is, this idea of not living up to my potential. Is like, I know
Hmm.
I'm made for more, but
Yeah.
fuck, that's like so much work to maintain. And once I attain this level, or like this performance level, or whatever that looks like, whether that's, even just, whether that's a relationship or a job or school marks, or fitness, whatever that is like, once I get there and people see me at this level, now they're going to expect me to stay there. And that just sounds so exhausting, because it took me so much work to get there. It's like this idea of perfectionism is, or this
Hmm.
perceived idea of wanting people to see us as perfect. So I
Yeah.
know I'm capable, but I can't sustain this pressure of being seen a certain way.
Hmm.
And that is debilitating. So that's just this idea of justifying. So then the self-sabotage comes in, of
Yeah.
not holding yourself back, not speaking up in meetings or in conversations, expressing our opinions or even our knowledge, like sharing our skills or whatever. because once we do, then that's expected of us. And now we have this extra responsibility. So you would do
Yeah.
things to pull away and then in your head you can justify, well, this is why I didn't succeed.
Yeah.
This is why I didn't attain my goal or whatever. It's because, well, I know I didn't try as hard here and blah, blah, blah. It's that being able to self-justify why we are not doing what we know we should be doing, or achieving what we know we are capable of achieving.
Yeah. That is so right. Like justifying your actions of non-movement.
Yeah.
Like whether you're blaming someone else or you're just like, I just decided no, but like really internally you knew that
Yeah.
it was for you. But it's so funny how like the subconscious works even though when we have no idea it's happening. Like our subconscious
Sometimes you do
thoughts.
know. At least I
And
did. Like
sometimes,
there's, oh, you're like, I'm like, I call bullshit. You're like, nah, no one else will know.
yeah, that is so, that's so funny. Yeah, no one else will know.
But then that
Yeah,
just
I think,
perpetuates this system of like, shame and guilt, and then you just withdraw even more, like it's,
yeah,
man, we're so hard on ourselves when instead of working through the problem, we're like, let's figure out a way to get out of this, to
hmm,
backpedal and like manage the perceived damage, and then I'm just gonna beat the shit out of myself internally,
yeah,
but put on a
yeah,
face that I'm fine, all's fine. I'm happy
yep,
with where I'm at, and I can justify where I'm at, and I'm okay. Everything's fine. You know,
yeah.
so silly.
No, I guess, yeah, there's definitely like that piece. There's always the piece of you too that does know. So I retract the part, but because I think there are pieces that don't. But there is like, I can think about myself in that experience too. And it's like always knowing I could do more, but
Yeah.
stopping myself because I didn't believe that I was going to be as good as someone else that was doing that thing.
Or someone's
So
already
then
done it.
or someone's already done it. So why would somebody want to watch me or talk to me or, which is just hilarious that like that's a literal thought that holds people back, thinking that something can only be done one time. Because it's like, what in the world has been done one time and that's it? Like,
Yeah.
pretty much nothing. I can't think of anything. It's like I have a soda water right here, this one company. Well, guess what? Then there's the other companies and the other one. It's like no one thinks of just like one thing and that's the end all be all. But that would be an actual thought for me is like they've already done it. No one would want to hear what I say. They have especially if you get in the realm of social media, they have 10 million followers. I have 50. What could I possibly be contributing that they're not?
Yeah. Well, it's just so like I always have this. I have my mom's voice in my head. I think back to a teenager, and she would tell me things, and it would just aggravate her. She would tell me things of like try and teach me something,
Yeah.
and not in a like like hard parenting type of way. It was just simple things, of facts of life or whatever. And it's just, she would try to teach me anything. And it was so resistant to what she would teach me that I'd be like, I know all that already, mom. Or like, I don't need to know that, whatever the this discussion was. And then I would go to school and then someone else would tell me that, a teacher or someone else's parent. Come home and be like, guess what I learned today, mom? And she'd be like, but it goes to show that, and it's the same with when I read personal development books. Oftentimes we whether it's personal development books or the people you follow on social media, you can hear the same thing, the same message over and over and over, but that one person sharing it in a certain way, in their voice, in a certain example, and you're like, wow,
Yeah.
holy crap, And you're like, you've heard that 1,000 times, but you're like, it just makes sense. The way I connected with you in your story, that makes sense to me. That resonates with me. Yes, I know I've heard this before, but now I understand.
Yeah. I think that's so funny. That's just happened to me and my daughter, like recently, multiple
Oh,
times. And and being on the other end of that, I'm just like, you do remember that conversation we had, don't you?
yes.
Like, I literally told you that. Yeah, but and I'm
Yeah.
just like, oh my God. That's it. That's it exactly. Because it's like we can all hear things differently in different times. I'm not trying to get off track, but I think it's funny because I'm very relating to that from being on the other side of it
Yeah.
recently.
And I wonder, like, it's kind of now that I'm thinking about this, and again, I've also experienced this with our kids. And every time it happens, I want to call my mom and be like, I'm so sorry. But at the same time, I think my reaction or my mom's reaction, that's partly ego too, of us feeling the need to be not necessarily right, but like heard, I guess,
Hmm.
or understood or valued, I guess. You're
Yeah.
like, well, how come that didn't resonate with you the way I said it? That's our
Yeah.
own ego being a little bit bruised.
Hmm.
Sorry, I'm
Definitely.
like, ooh, yeah.
Oh, no, 100%. 100%. Yeah. I'm like, what? What about, yeah, it's all ego.
Yeah.
It's like, oh yeah.
So I was reading this book, and in the book he says, it was the first time I'd ever seen it written like this, is imposter syndrome is actually a toxic form of ego. Is this
Okay.
idea of, we have an idea of how we want to be perceived. And
Hmm.
sometimes we have these limited beliefs of like, I'm not able to actually achieve that or achieve this perception of me. Like that's where perfectionism comes in as well, and procrastination, because we don't think we can actually achieve this outcome or this version of ourselves that we want to put out in the world based on what we
Yeah.
think other people want of us. And that's our ego versus us
Hmm.
actually showing up as our authentic self.
Hmm.
And when we do that, there's no room for imposter syndrome. This is who I am. I am present in this moment. I am my best self. And we're not thinking about in this future interpretation of ourselves
Yeah.
that we can't even control.
Right.
Yeah.
I was
Oh,
just having that conversation, sorry,
no.
with a client the other day of that exact thing of how, you know, struggling communicating with your partner and how we end up when we aren't communicating in that space of what our wants or needs are, we're kind of showing up fake. We're showing up as who they want us to be. Like, okay, I'll be this, when in reality, it's not even serving us. It's in fact serving the other person and making us continually feeling worse about ourselves because we're showing up as how, ultimately more likely who we think they want us to be instead of who we are, which we've heard this 1,000 times. But then at that time when you're looking for that connection, you're not going to get that deep level connection if you can't show up authentically.
Absolutely.
It's just not going to happen.
People sense that. There's an energy,
Yeah.
but when you show up authentically, there's an energy to that attracts
Yeah.
people that are meant to be in your circle, are the people that are meant to connect with you. But when you
Yeah.
don't, people don't trust that. There's like a mistrust. They're like, there's something off. And the
Hmm.
more, on on our side, you can sense that they don't completely trust. So we try to compensate, and trying to
Yeah.
figure out what are they looking for of me.
Yeah.
And so then we try to act accordingly, but like we're creating this narrative for them and trying
Hmm.
to act in this play that you're creating that you think they actually want, and it just inevitably it blows up.
Yeah. I think of that for like the biggest thing is like when you're at a restaurant and the server comes over and they're like, "Hi!" and like the pitch is high, everything they say, you're just like, I wonder who they really are. Like
Yeah.
I get the, service piece to it, but there is that piece of like, there's no way they talk like that all the time, right? Like they don't actually just talk high level pitch all the time, which is funny because I was just listening to this podcast the other day and it was a CIA agent and she was talking about uh, how people talk and how people are and like when you're living in that space, like that's not who you are. Like that's not real. And that's something that they will look for when they're talking to people is their tone and how like what it sounds like and the different variations of it. And like when you're in your most authentic self, you're at ease. You can pause. You can think through things. You don't feel like you have to be up on a high level, like screaming and yelling the whole time.
Yeah, you're not performing.
Yeah,
Like there's a
exactly.
stage element of using your stage voice. And but I
Yeah.
also wonder, so okay, so this is very interesting to me because part of me thinks sometimes there is different versions of ourselves. We're different versions of ourselves with our partner, not inauthentic versions of ourselves, just different levels. Like I'm very different with my best friend than I am with my husband, because
Yeah.
they need, I meet her excitement level because I'm also that excited. We share energy and we just like start vibrating faster and faster together.
Yeah.
Whereas
Yeah.
he's so much more mellow, where he kind of, not that he brings me down, but just I it's a more relaxing, so like my voice drops a little bit when I'm with him, but when I'm with
Yeah.
her my voice goes up because I'm super excited and we're talking about really fun things. Not
Yeah.
that I don't talk about fun things with him, but there's just this a little bit different levels of ourselves
Yeah.
that I don't, and I love your feedback on this. Is that inauthentic, or is this just vibrations, energy levels? Yeah, I'm curious what your thoughts are on that.
I think that that is like a feeling. Like I think only like you could answer that, right? Like when you're being inauthentic or when you're being who you are. And I do think that different people bring out different vibrations from us. And I do understand too that like in certain circumstances, higher level energy is more needed, right? Like we come on here and we do these, um, eventually I feel as if we settle in. But I mean, there's this aspect of us that wants to show up. And like, if we just were like, meh, 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 like who wants to listen, right? Like there is a piece of energy that has to go into this because that's part of what's going on. Is it inauthentic? For me, no, because I do operate in these higher levels from time to time. Do I have that high energy all the time? No. When I am at home, will I be like do? Totally. So yeah, I mean there is a setting for sure. But I do believe that when you're being authentic, like that's how you're showing, how do I word this? Like it's okay showing up that way, but only when you're not being authentic, technically.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%. Because now that you're saying that, I'm like, because I'm an extrovert, I, I seek that energy and people's energy, but there's an element where I do need to rest. I need
Yeah.
to retreat, and uh, they feed my energy, but at the same time, sometimes I do need to like recharge, and he is my
Hmm.
safe space to recharge,
Yeah.
where I can be super mellow and just rest with him. It's very restful. It's very relaxing. So it's almost this balance of myself.
Yeah.
So it's not inauthenticity. It's just finding balance within my energy. Because who can
Definitely.
maintain like high, super high. And not that, I mean, not every time we talk to my best friend, we're not like super high vibrations, but it's just being around people, whether it's my best friend or going out with people, that's how I like to show up. It's like I love meeting people, and it's just like, to me, that brings this energy. But like you said, is like, even us just chatting, like, you bring this energy because you're excited about hearing. I
Yeah.
love to hear what your input is, and it's the same with in any conversation. I want to hear your story, and but there comes a time where I need to like process, and
Yeah.
that needs calm, and that needs to some stillness, and he is my
Hmm.
stillness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would say that there was like a time and a place where I feel like I always showed up with that higher energy. Like that was, I wouldn't, maybe not even like always, but that's how I felt I needed to show up. I didn't want to be a downer, but that's because that was a perception of myself that I had created based on, being worthy, based on, whatever other belief that I had created. And now, because I'm more comfortable with myself, because I am okay with who I am, because I understand I ebb and flow like everyone else, I'm okay showing up lower vibrationally. And like that, if that's what I have to give that day, like that's what I have to give. And I'm okay with that because I preserve my energy in a different way. Where before I think I was just running on fumes. Now I'm like, oh no, I'm fully aware of the amount of energy I have in a day. I try to see what I've got going on and how I kind of need to distribute that throughout my day so that I'm not running on fumes.
Yeah. So I guess now that, as you're saying that, there are times where I don't know if perform is the right word. Say we have a speaking engagement, or,
Hmm.
something that we've booked, or where you're kind of the center of attention. You are meant to be the energy of the room,
Yeah.
because just because you're the facilitator or whatever it is, like, your role is to bring energy to the room, to
Yep.
bring excitement to the room. And the days where you don't necessarily you feel a little bit depleted, or you feel like you're just a little bit more mellow today, and it's not even a depletion thing, it's just like, today I just feel mellow. Is it inauthentic to I guess act a little bit, to act as if?
Mm.
I'm curious what your thoughts are on that.
You know, is it inauthentic to who you are to like show up having more? No, I say no.
I would agree, yeah.
Yeah. I think if you're being someone like that you're not, that's different than showing up and being like, I have a job to do. I'm facilitating this. I have to bring the energy. This is a temporary moment. That's not acting any sort of different way or saying things any different. That's just bringing a higher energy to the space. And there's a difference.
I was reading recently about, this woman was talking about how we put ourselves in flow state. So oftentimes we wait until we're in flow, or whatever you want to call it. Like, you know, you you have like your edge, or whatever it is like, you're like, yeah, I feel like I'm in my element. And we sometimes just hope that it comes, or we're just excited that it does come. But
Yeah.
she was talking about, how do you create that in advance? This concept of, almost envisioning and recreating times in the past that this has happened. So just to putting your body, relying on your body's kind of emotional, not necessarily emotional, but energy memory of what it feels like to be in your flow state, or like having your edge, or being in your element. And allowing your body to recreate that and get back into that state first instead of waiting for it to happen. And I thought that's such
Yeah.
a great concept. We use that for other things, but to use this when we are, facing imposter syndrome, when you're not feeling, using it as a way to combat imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
It's like, I know in the past I've felt like completely authentic. I felt like I was in my element, high vibrations, whatever you want to call it. And I can do that to combat these fears. And using that memory of, it's like it's recreating those little wins from the past. It's like reminding yourself what your skills are, what your strengths are, and like just that kind of little bit of self-talk of, I am capable. I've done it in the past. Here's the evidence. Instead of
Yeah.
focusing on what you're not capable, is like what I am capable of. And like, okay, when I was capable of that in the past, how did I feel? Like what energy was going through my body, and how can I bring that to this, so that I don't fall trapped to imposter syndrome.
Yeah. I think too, when it comes to imposter syndrome, I always think, because I would get in this headspace of like, I'm nervous, I'm nervous, I'm nervous. And then learning that our body doesn't actually know the difference between being nervous and being excited.
Yes.
And so switching that to I'm excited, but also like, I mean, if we're talking on this subject of like facilitating and having lower energy, or like how we want to show up and we need to have good energy, that type of thing, it's it's like prepare, right?
Yeah.
It's like what do you need to do to prepare to show up to that best state of mind? So I'm probably going to go to bed early. I'm for sure not going to drink, multiple days the night before. I want to be clear-headed. I'm going to hone in on my skills. Like I'm going to get in my body and out of my head. So I'm probably going to do some meditations. I'm probably going to recognize my nerves and remind them that they're excited.
Yes.
That they're excited and that we're not nervous. We're so excited because we have so much knowledge to share, and so much, great things are going to come of this type of thing.
Yeah. So like Tony Robbins is a fantastic example of this. I mean, the amount of energy, I don't know if you guys have ever seen him, like some of his events, whether it's streamed or in live in person, but it is electric, the amount of energy he sustains for over 12 hours.
Yeah.
And it's, he talks about it, like what he does is like he'll jump on a rebounder in between like sections of his talks and stuff like that. Like
Hmm.
he maintains this, and he puts himself in that state, so when he comes out, he comes out running, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And but then he also talks about like the importance of his self-care,
Hmm.
and his stillness, and all of his practices and habits that he makes priority, so that he can go and, like you say, be prepared for what he's trying to accomplish, and
Yeah.
what his purpose is. And his purpose is to create these events for people that are super high vibrational, so that they can get the most out of it as well, from what he's trying to teach, right? So it's, I like that you said that, it's you're preparing for this. You're not going into it, or it's not coming blindsided. It's like, this is
Hmm.
what I want to accomplish, and working back is creating this action plan of how do you put yourself in that state, so that you aren't you don't fall victim to your imposters, all the
Yeah.
voices in your head, and that imposter syndrome. And yeah, so you kind of plan of, this is how I attack that.
Hmm.
Having this tool set, like this toolbox that you can reach in, and like, I know I can use this and I can use that. And this is what I know I can do to get through. So
Yeah.
that's a great question, is for you, or what are some things that you suggest to your clients when they come to you with, let's say, like they're suffering from, well, not that they come and be like, I'm suffering from imposter syndrome. Usually that's a
Right.
conversation. But
Yeah.
what are some of the tools that you give, or that you use for imposter syndrome?
Or I would say to just umbrella that even further, bringing it back to like self-sabotage, right? Like,
Yes.
because those are all the things that are holding us back. And so something that is huge is starting to build trust within yourself. And as a recovering people pleaser and working with people pleasers, something that I have recognized is we're really good at upholding responsibilities or whatever we have for anyone else, and then we'll let ourselves off the hook. And every single time we do that, we're telling ourselves, I don't trust you. I don't trust you. You don't make good decisions. You let yourself down. And we may not be thinking that that's what we're doing. We're like, no, I'm just tired. It's okay. But you had already told yourself you were going to do something, right? So that mixed with like that piece of, okay, there's this new job I want to go for. I'm going to go ask everyone else about it instead of asking myself. So all of those types of things, we have to take the time to start building trust back within ourselves. So I'll tell clients, find the smallest thing that you can tell yourself that you're going to do and then do it. So if it's the night before and it's just something simple, like I'm going to make my coffee and get ready, and then I decided I'm going to wear lipstick. Lipstick kind of makes me feel good, so I'm going to do that. Do that, right? Like if you say you're going to, instead of grabbing a bagel out of a bag, I'm going to make myself eggs. Like, I don't care what the thing is that you say you're going to do. Just do it. Just do it. And don't say it if you're not going to do it. Because it's imperative to build trust within yourself to ever get out of this spiral of self-sabotaging, because you will continue to do it over and over again when you don't believe in yourself and you don't believe you make good decisions.
So what I'm hearing you say is in order to build trust, it's creating kind of a list of little wins. It's just collecting little wins in order to kind of build that confidence, build that, or to remember.
Yeah.
I guess not even remember, to reframe how you look at yourself. It's like just reframing of these are all my failures, but these are all the wins that I have. I can win. I can accomplish.
Yeah.
I can trust myself again. Yeah. I want to add to that. As you were talking about this, all I could hear in my head is accountability. And as someone who like, oh man, I hate count. As you can tell, I have a really weird relationship with accountability because of this self-sabotage, and having the awareness to know that, like, calling my own bullshit, I didn't want anyone else to call me on my bullshit. I already know what's going on. But the more and more I do it, of announcing what my goals are, and whether they're small or big, of just like having, I don't want to say like use anybody, is use someone that you trust, that if they say, or when they do their little check-in or whatever it is, that you don't feel like you need to hide the truth from them. Because that was the other thing, is like this, having this accountability is, I can lie to, you kind of get like, almost like I would almost feel like a manipulator, because I could manipulate and justify the story of why I didn't accomplish. But having someone that you trust, first of all, not to air any of it, like that it isn't, that you have that confidentiality with, like, you really, really trust them, that they have your best interests at heart, but someone who's like, what is going on? I know that you're capable. You told me this is what you wanted to do, and this is why you wanted to do it. Like, let's talk about that.
Yeah.
And then you feel safe enough to act. And sometimes we don't have that in our circle. And that's why, like, having a coach, someone like that is third party, has no investment in your life, and not that we're not invested in your life, but you know what I mean? Like, you're not seeing them on a daily basis. You're not, right? It's just someone that you can kind of tell those deeper feelings, or worries or concerns that what's going on behind the
Yeah.
self-sabotage. But voicing these things out loud, and then when they don't happen, acknowledging them, having someone you feel safe to say, I didn't complete this because,
Yeah.
and being honest with that so that you can get through it. Because instead of sitting in the shame and internalizing all of that and hiding it from people, and then that's when the inauthenticity happens, is we feel like we're putting on these masks for all these people.
Mm-hmm.
And you're just like trying to manage all these, like, oh shit, I told him I was going to do this, but then I told him that this is why I wasn't able to accomplish it because I told him I wasn't interested anymore, blah, 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 blah. It's like you're having to manage all these stories that you're telling yourself, but you've told them. So you got to make sure that you remember who you told what and why. So being honest so that you can actually work through the problem.
Yeah. And also acknowledge that if you're going to do something new, it's going to be uncomfortable.
Yeah, 100%. That's a huge piece of it.
Like, bring in the discomfort. Acknowledge there's going to be discomfort. This new thing that you're going to do is not going to be comfortable. In fact, you're kind of, sometimes it feels like you're going against yourself even, because your ego, if you don't have it maintained and under control, is going to be so loud. You're having to fight through your ego telling you not to do it because this is scary, don't do it. But there's this connection between, your body and your higher self of like knowing what's right for you
Yeah.
and just accepting that, okay, this is going to be uncomfortable. And in order to make the move, I'm going to have to be uncomfortable temporarily for a short amount of time until this new thing becomes the old thing, right? Until this new thing we've done so many times now that it's not scary. I used an analogy not that long ago about like going to a new workout place, like a yoga studio, and just how much you have to like, oh my God, I'm going to be the worst one in there. Everyone's going to be like standing on their head and twirling, and I can barely bend, and all of this. Where am I going to sit? Until you go and you go the first day, and it's like that's under your belt, and then you go again. What is it, a week in, you have a spot, the trainer, you're like, I'm good, everyone else sucks too.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, I was not the worst one, or, whatever, we just, you know what I'm saying, I'm trying to make lighthearted of it, but it's like, that repetition became easier and easier to where that really scary thing you did isn't scary anymore. And that pretty much plays out in any circumstance, regardless of where you're trying to go. It's scary and just like uncomfortable at first, and then it becomes the new norm.
Yeah. And I think a big part of that is like, what's the motivation? It's easy to, when we don't have our motivation, and I'll talk about where motivation comes from, but when we don't have that motivation, it's easy to rely more on our protective mechanisms, those things of like, these ancient, I don't know, impulses in our body to keep us safe from when things were actually harmful,
Yeah.
Back in the day.
Yeah.
But to get through that is like, we have to combat those protective mechanisms, we have to have a reason to override those. We need that motivation. Like, why am I actually trying to do this? And to have that focus to like talk your way through and reminding yourself why that you are trying to, whether it's try a new place. And that comes from being really clear on your values and your why, essentially, what your I don't want to go as far as what your purpose is, obviously, like, especially something like a decision of going to a new yoga studio, like that's maybe not your purpose, but something that aligns with your values, because your emotions are, especially when they're kind of a heightened negative emotion, oftentimes we have those because it's going against your values, right? And so, or your values are feeling attacked or not supported. So, okay, well, how, and that's kind of where your intuition comes in, your gut comes in, is like, okay, that difference of fear of me not accomplishing something, or am I afraid because it actually doesn't align with
Yeah.
where I see myself going and who I want to be. But when you're like, I'm trying to accomplish this because this is important to me, because this aligns with these values or whatever your goals are. So that you using those as motivators of I can
Yeah.
override those protective mechanisms, because this is so important to me
Yeah.
in where I'm trying to go in life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I want to mention this too with values, and I will have to cut this short in just a few minutes. But question your values. Because if you've been walking around being who everyone else wants you to be, chances are your values are probably your parents, your siblings, someone religiously, like, right? Your values may not even be your own. So start getting super curious about yourself. Like, is this actually something I believe in? Or maybe it is, but maybe I don't believe in it that much. Maybe I don't need to like die on the,
Yeah. Yeah.
whatever. Like, what are your values? Because people would say that to me, and I would reiterate values that like I could hear or see my parents do. And which great for them. They can have their own values. But what I didn't realize is I was living out theirs. It's like, whoa, wait, hold on. Those aren't mine. So get really curious about yourself and allow yourself to have fun during this time of like
Yeah.
exploration in this new way of living, of recognizing I'm self-sabotaging. I don't want to do this anymore. How can I get to know myself on a deeper level? How can I make this fun? Because inherently we're all fun, you know?
And
And
fun to
and
me is
have
different than fun to you. So like, let me own my
absolutely.
own what's fun to me, and that's okay.
Yes. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Oh man, we could keep going down this road. This is a long road.
I know. This is a long one. I know. More will come up, but sadly the time will have to come to an end.
Okay, I'll be quiet now. Yeah, no, I think this is such an important conversation to have, whether it's with yourself and even just with your friends. Like, start talking about this kind of stuff. You'd be
Yeah.
surprised. I think a lot of people feel, at least I did, feel really alone in this. They don't
Yeah.
want to voice these things out loud, but you are not alone. The person sitting
Hmm.
beside you has their own things that they self sabotage, their own fears, their own imposter syndrome. Talk about it. The more we talk about it, the more we normalize talking about our fears and like working through our fears together and just building community of people rooting for you.
Yeah.
Not with their own agenda of just like, I see you, I have my own stuff going on too. Let's do it together, or like, I'm rooting for you, you root for me, and just using those relationships and those building this tribe and this community of people that are just wanting you to do your best and see you at your
Yeah.
best version. Yeah. I love it. Oh, I
So
love these
true.
conversations.
They're so good. Okay, well, thank you everyone for listening to our talk on self-sabotage, and I'm sure there will be another episode or 12 or 15 of ones similar to this because we struggle with this. Our clients struggle with this because why? We're human. This is a human experience. This is a
Yeah.
human emotion. This is a human thing that comes up. But like and subscribe to our channel, please.
Yes. And please comment. We love to hear any feedback or your thoughts. And even topics that you guys might want us to talk about. Be part of the conversation. This is an open
Yes.
discussion. So absolutely. Thank you for watching today.
Okay, bye-bye.